The Delaware County Local Transportation Commission is now going to be meeting in regular session. Before we get started, I'm going to ask you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Hawley.
Okay, ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hemmingson,
Here.
Commissioner Hawley,
Here.
Commissioner Short,
Here.
Commissioner Murray. Here. Policy Advisory Member Medham,
Here.
Chairman Finnegan.
Here. And with that, we're going to go to public comment. Any member of the public may address the board on any issue that is within the purview of this board. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And who would like to go first? Take your time, Elizabeth. Good to see you. Good morning.
I'm Elizabeth Burrows. I speak for the seniors. And we want to thank all of you for the quality of life through Dollarite. My God, we couldn't stay at home. And then the only thing we ask, if for emergency, we could have one-day pickup. That's all we ask. Because, a lot of time, there are emergency we don't even know, and it would help.
Okay.
Otherwise, we have to be called for a couple of days.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought we did have that, Elizabeth, so we'll definitely check into it, and with the RCT, I believe, as well, right? Is that who we would?
Yeah, I can forward the comment to Rebel Coast Transit, new staff.
All of you look so handsome. Yeah.
Well, I would have worn a tie.
Thank you.
Thank
She
you,
only
Elizabeth.
said that because Brad showed up.
Yeah. Any other public comment?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Shelley Horrigan, and I live in the Birch Tract with my 21-year-old.
Shelley, hold on a second. I'm going to get him to pull the
Oh,
mic
yeah.
down for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There you go.
I'm Shelley Horrigan, and I've lived here for 5 years now and live with my 21-year-old granddaughter who is autistic, so the two of us are disabled and use the Dollarite often. But I understand, my question is, today, you received monies, grants, for the Dollarite bus, I believe.
I tell you, the way it works is rather than engaging, because it gets out of hand very
All right.
fast when we do question and answer.
Okay.
And if you would make your comments, then I will make sure that if
All right.
there's specific questions that we do get your address or an email, and we'll respond to you specifically to those questions.
Thank you.
Because it has to do with fare boxes and a lot of
All
different
right,
stuff.
that's no problem. Thank you for hearing me today, by the way, all of you. I use Dollarite frequently, and the cost for me is 10% of my retirement check I spend on the two of us taking Dollarite. And we pay double than the average bus rider pays. And I think that that should be looked into and addressed. We are on restrictive budgets and need any the help we can get. But Dollarite is our life. It gets me to the store, to doctors, even to church on Saturday. Couldn't make it without it. And I'm very thankful for it. Thank you for letting me speak.
Well, thank you for your comments. We'll get your questions answered before you leave, if you can
Yes.
get where we can forward those answers. But I think you also gave us some fodder for perhaps further discussion to see if, in the case of disabilities, if there is a fair structure that can be addressed somehow in a future conversation.
That's what I appreciate.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Bill Lonsdale. I live in Crescent City. I want to comment on several items on the consent agenda where funds are being made available for Redwood Coast Transit, and to compliment your commission and the decision bodies that you represent for the fact that Crescent City and Del Norte County continue to contribute 100% of the available TDA money to Redwood Coast Transit. That is commendable. It is also rare. It, I think, defines the commitment that the city and the county have to as nice and as convenient and as affordable a public transit system as it is possible to have. And Redwood Coast Transit, for its part, pays back the loyalty that you have to it by returning one of the most attractive and enviable fare box recovery ratios in the rural areas. And you all are to be commended for it, and Redwood Coast Transit is to be commended for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That is perhaps one of the most refreshing things I've heard. And thank you very much. Next, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Madeline DeLapp, Executive Director at the Environmental Protection Information Center. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this morning. I'm here because I am very concerned about the content of the staff report regarding the proposed overall work plan and regional transportation plan for 2016 that was included in the technical advisory agenda packet last week. The staff report characterizes our comments on the draft 2016 RTP as an insincere engagement with the public process driven by a hidden motive and implies that we only care about the 199 STAA project. It also suggests that we are perhaps by design draining the DNLTC's transportation budget by requiring extensive responses to our comments. These comments and these statements such statements, characterizations, and implications are completely false, and I'm here today to set the record straight. We submitted extensive comments on the RTP because we have serious concerns about the document. We have been told repeatedly by both state and local officials that if we have concerns, the best place is to engage early in the planning process, which is why we are engaging the RTP process. And while it's no secret that we oppose the STAA project, even a cursory reading of our comments reveals that our concerns with the draft RTP are much broader than that. Our concerns address road safety, greenhouse gases, public process, and the fact that the majority of our comments point to inconsistencies of the STAA project with your planning priorities and regulations, along with inadequate prioritization of the last chance grade project, underlies the fact that it is time to pull the plug on the STAA project and focus resources on last chance grade. I highly encourage all of the commissioners to read our comments, and the fact that your legal counsel has advised that our comments merit serious response is validation of our concerns. Had there been no substantive legal issues with the draft RTP and the accompanying environmental document, there would be no comments requiring such substantive response. Regardless, our comments are in no way intended to drain the DNLTC's budget. On the contrary, we support 3 of the projects that are now being proposed to be eliminated, and we would like to see those ones move forward. The RTP guidelines and CEQA guidelines require opportunities for public input and require responses for such input. Our comments simply represent an exercise of our right and upholding of our civic responsibility to engage the public process. The DNLTC should budget for response to comments, and it is unacceptable for staff reports to blame the public, including public interest groups such as ours, for the fact that the DNLTC's RTP was inadequate and not budgeting appropriately for that. We have serious concerns about how CEQA was used in this process. We are going to continue to engage this. We hope that you take this very seriously and appreciate the input that the public is trying to provide you through this process as we look ahead for 5 to 10 to 25 years into the future. With that, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, please.
Greetings. My name is Barbara Kennedy, and I am with the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. And we are one of the groups that, along with EPIC, are expressing concerns about the 197-199 STAA access project. And our group, the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities, advocates for public transit and for active modes of transportation such as bikes and pedestrian modes of transportation. So together with that, in the light of climate change and the governor's priorities for reducing greenhouse gases, and for the state being tasked, as was reported in the newspaper the other day, the state is tasked with deleting $754 million worth of transportation projects due to the reduction of revenues from gas taxes. We would like to question the efficacy of proceeding with this expensive project. Is it really responding to today's concerns for reducing greenhouse gases and for fiscal responsibility? We also question how this project is going to coordinate with your own Crescent City Gateway project. I don't have in-depth knowledge of that project, but you can imagine if that Gateway project is meant to create a more walkable community, a more bikeable community, how is that going to interface with these largest, most dangerous trucks on the road, the STAA vehicles? So I urge you to take another look at this project. I realize you've invested money and time in planning this project, but these planning horizons have a long time in planning. And what may have seemed like a great project years ago may not be in accord with today's concerns, particularly greenhouse gas emissions. These trucks are the greatest greenhouse gas emission vehicles on the road. They're the most dangerous vehicles on the road. And this project, the monies allocated for this project will go to enhancing other projects that are more responsive to today's needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please. Anybody else like to weigh in with public comments?
Hi, Eileen Cooper. I just want to point out that the word safe does not belong on the title of the STAA big truck project on Highway 199. And the recent accidents on the Smith River prove that. That spot was one of the spots that our organization targeted as having tremendous amount of accidents. We submitted to the record a study, our own study. And so there are other places along that river that are just as dangerous. They're not in the project to put big trucks in. The only way those trucks were, the spot improvements were determined was to slowly follow a truck with the CHP very slowly around to see just where they, hung over. And then what were we given? A reasonable amount of fix in those few spots? No. We're given safety exemptions, huge safety exemptions that are too dangerous to put big trucks on that road. An insufficient, extremely insufficient amount of widening and then putting big trucks on that road without taking a whole look at safety on that road and without providing enough clearance is a formula for disaster. You are sacrificing the public good and safety for a minimal, small user constituent that we don't seem to even really need. Big box stores are functioning. The lily bulb industry is thriving. Hay gets here. Yeah, we have been sold a terrible project, and we need to reject it. And if you think, how many projects has 1,000 comments come in on in this community? Well, people have spoken up because the truth has come out about that. We were promised something safe. We weren't given something safe. We want our monies to go to real safety projects. We want a whole look at the whole corridor for safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? No? Okay. Well, thank you for commenting, members of the public that did. So we're going to go ahead and adjourn to the Policy Advisory Committee, and I'd ask to take up the consent agenda, which are items A through I. Can I get a motion, please?
We'll so move with a couple of minor corrections to the minutes.
Okay. And those, go ahead and...
both sets of minutes at the end mention Ms. Murray as adjourning the meeting. Need to be corrected on the earlier minutes as myself, and then the later minutes to Mr. Finnegan. Also, in the March 17th meeting minutes, that'd be page 5 of the agenda. Ms. Murray asked about the Pebble Beach project, and it wasn't answered in the minutes. I don't have any big concerns about that. I just wondered if it should be answered and reflected in the minutes prior to adoption.
Go ahead, Tamara.
Yeah, I don't know the place in the minutes, but what I would propose is that we just pull the minutes, go back and take a look at our original record, see if the answer was given in the meeting, and resubmit the minutes for a future meeting.
Yeah.
That'd be the minutes of March 17th, so I'll move that we pull the March 17th minutes, and I will move that we accept the rest of the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda minus the minutes of March 17th, which will be on our next agenda. Public comment on any item within the consent agenda. Back to the board. Comments, questions? Hold a vote, please.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Policy Advisory Member Madam?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Chairman Finnegan?
Yes. And with that, we're going to go to the policy and administrative items and receive an information from Caltrans Office of Traffic Safety. Welcome.
Thank you.
And David, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, David. My name is David Morgan. I'm the Traffic Safety Chief for District 1. I've been here before. Today I'm going to talk about Del Norte 199 at 10.5 as well as 88 through the town of Crescent City. But before I do that, I want to thank you and thank Tamara for our HAWK project, which is what I was here before about. We're up for an award. Do you know what award that is? We're up for
It's a statewide safety project award.
Right, so there's 3 that qualified for the state, and we're one of them. So we're hoping that the HAWK receives that award.
Good.
Okay, so I'll start with 10.5. 10.5, we all know that there's unfortunately been 3 accidents recently within the last 6 months. One of the accidents was at 10.3, which was not actually at 10.5. That was southbound in December. Those gentlemen went in the water, and we finally got them out. And then we've had 2 recently at 10.5. So, as this group may know, we've initiated a $6 million project, which is going to take on the order of 3 to 5 years to implement. But before that time, since I'm kind of figuring out that people are going too fast for conditions, I'm going to go out there and change the signage to chevrons as well as a curb warning sign to try to slow people down. An additional thing I'm going to do out there immediately, or as soon as I can make happen, is I'm going to put down what's called high friction surface treatment, which you saw go in on Cushion Creek. That should stop all sliding of anything going on with that. So that's what I'm going to try to happen immediately. So with that, are there any questions about 10 and a half?
Yeah, David, you said that the first incident was southbound?
That's correct.
Were the other two northbound?
They were.
Okay. Thank you.
The northbound was at 10 and a half, which is what we have there as a 2-lane conventional highway with a turnout, like 8 to 20-foot turnout. So if you look at the 5 years of collisions before that, they were all to the outside of the curve.
So, David, we don't have any information about the 3 to 5 year project. If you could just give us a brief summary.
Okay, well, on that one, I was also thinking the high friction surface treatment, perhaps some shoulder widening, because we don't have enough. I don't know if we'll do a super improvement on that or not, and I don't know at this point whether I'll be putting in guardrail or not. So as that project develops, we'll kind of determine those things, Tamara.
Okay.
It just, you know, it occurred to me driving up there that there's a heck of, you got a turnout there.
Yes.
You got a wide shoulders.
There's a lot of room.
Probably would, you know, just looking at it without knowing any of the history, it would appear to be one of the safer.
Yes,
You got
inside
line
of
of
the curve.
sight, you got wide road.
Right, and that's why I say, if I look at the recent 5 years collisions, David, they're all to the outside of that curve.
Yeah, it just doesn't
We
make
also have in
sense.
Caltrans what's called the Table Cs, which every quarter we march down every route that we have to try to determine if there are significant collision rates, and that location has never come up as a significant collision rate location. So we will make some changes and stop what's going on out there.
So the new type of surface is a better option than the guardrailing. Kevin Tucker
Yes, the
mentioned
high
that
friction surface treatment will stop them from sliding, which is kind of what these last kids did that were from, where they were from Washington and Alaska, and I think Wyoming or Arizona for the other two kids. But that one was, again, wet sliding situation. That high friction has proven in my business to stop people from sliding.
Kevin Tucker mentioned that the guardrailing is not a very good safety option. Because
No, it tends to bounce them right back into oncoming traffic.
Yeah, so it's good for the public to know that, because that's the first
Correct.
reaction is to put that guardrail out there.
Right,
It's not a good option.
You have to evaluate as a fixed object, so it's going to deflect up to 4 feet and then bounce you right back into traffic. So you have to be careful what you ask for. It's, like I said, the roadway there is 2-lane conventional, inside of a curve is the river, so they really shouldn't be going that way. And like I say, I believe when the two gentlemen died, it was, and I told Tamara this, was one of the wettest days of the year. Or at least I thought it was like a monsoon day, because I had several fatalities throughout my district on that day. Any other questions on 10 and a half? Brad?
David, if you could just clarify when we say immediately, what that time frame would be?
It would be within the next month or two. So I know I put the sign order out, and I'm working, Brad, as you know, with my maintenance crew to get the high frictions down there as soon as I can. So it's going to be a very good fix.
Good news.
Yeah, so we'll make some stuff happen immediately, even though, as Tamara knows, I don't have the fatality reports from either incident yet, but that's okay. We kind of get an idea from reading it on the media what happened out there.
I think probably the CHP, it took so long to get the first two gentlemen out.
Of the water, yes.
Yeah, that it's delayed the CHP's report, so.
Right, and I don't know if you know this or not, but like at 10.39, where the two gentlemen went off in December, they just missed the guardrail that's out there. There is guardrail out there right now, about, I want to say 300 to 400 feet of it, but not right at 10 and a half. It's like 10.4 to 10.49 is guardrail on the inside of a curve. So.
And we just had another fatality on 199, but I'm not sure where that was. It was in the paper on Tuesday, wasn't there?
Do you know the post mile?
No, it was,
There
I
was
thought it was in the paper.
I think there was an accident, but I don't know if it was a fatality out by the tunnel.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on 10.5 before I move on?
Just, actually,
Okay.
not on 10 and a half, but if I could, can I jump in on what's going on now with 199 and the construction? It appears that Spencer Electric's there, and they're putting up lights, and it appears to be a major project, and I didn't remember that going in.
What post mile is that going in at?
It's north of Hyuchi, between Hyuchi and Gasky.
Okay.
And it appears they're widening the road a little bit there, but I
did see that project there, and I'm not sure what that is, if that's a CAP-M or...
It was just interesting because
a maintenance
they route the
project
traffic
or-
on the southern part of the southern lane, so you're going through and it's really, I was thinking about guardrails because it's almost like you're over the river almost.
I think there's guardrail in that section, isn't there?
Well, not where they
there
were
is.
routing us through so they could get the construction done.
Oh, I see.
Against the wall there.
Yeah, I did see them putting up some K-rail and some crash cushions on it, and it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm just curious if anyone knew.
I can look into it for you if you really want me to, so it's up to you.
If convenient, that would be great.
Okay.
We'll provide an update through Tamara on that, so you know what's going on.
Anyway, thanks for that portion of the update. I think what is important is people know that Caltrans is perceived to be one of the slowest moving agencies there is, very methodical.
Oh, I could move pretty fast, too.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what's great to know, that within 30 days, that some of the immediacy of the incremental fixes,
Yes.
even though you have long-term planning studies to do major fix, within the next 30 days, you're going to have a couple of things out there. It's
Yes,
great.
I mean, all the maintenance forces are under me, so I can have their complete support, and of course, I direct them as to what I want them to do.
Good.
And Mr. Chair, we much prefer to be considered deliberate.
There you go.
Okay, let me go on with the ADA portion of this, and I understand we have an ADA program it's under me as well within your town. It doesn't quite reach out as far as Tamara and I would like it to reach. What's going on with that is, I'm going to do about 70 to 90 curb ramps going in, improvements, to make it ADA compliant in this town. We also would like to, and I'm going to try to do this under my program, is to pick up your gateway projects. So I am going to try to extend my limits of my ADA program all the way up from where it currently is to your gateway, and then beyond. I'm going to try to do a gap closure between the north end of the sidewalk in Crescent City all the way up the Washington ramp to the top of that, because I'm seeing people walking on the road, on dirt paths, all over the place to get up to Walmart. And I'm not liking what I see when I see that. So I'm going to try to extend my ADA all the way up to the top of Washington ramp and pick up your gateway, as well as down to the harbor and pick up that south gateway.
Great.
So I will try to fund that under my programs. I have various programs under me besides the ADA. Obviously, I have the safety program under me. I have the 235 program, which is another maintenance improvement sideway program under me, depending on what funds go. So I just want to give you that update that I will try to fund your gateway project.
Fantastic.
So, yep. Anything else you guys want to know about that?
I'd like to add some clarity. The portion of the Gateway project that would be covered under the ADA program would be the pedestrian improvements only, and not the full Gateway project. So there would still be many remaining components of the Gateway project for us to take a look at in the future. But again, I think this is a great opportunity to get some of those immediate problems taken care of in the near term. One of the things that we had been talking about is perhaps proposing the pedestrian improvements in the Gateway area for a active transportation program grant application. I'm not confident that that project would be competitive and in an extremely competitive program. So this is a spectacular opportunity for our community to move forward on something that's been a problem for a long time. And I just, I'm really grateful for Caltrans for coming up and saying, hey, let's expand the limits, or at least do our best to do so.
Right. We all know what we went through for the Hawk, and presumably we will go through some more of that for the Gateway program, because, we are dealing with business owners who don't want their businesses affected. So I would suspect that we'll all be here again talking about it, and that's fine. We're trying to make everybody happy at the same time. So we all understand what that means, that we'll be talking again. So, any questions for me before I go? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very enlightening.
Thank you, David.
Front Street Active Transportation Program match funds, TAC and staff recommendations. Who wants to take the lead on this? Tamara?
I will. And I believe Eric is here to answer any questions if I cannot. In our last meeting, the commission supported assisting the city with consultant help for developing an active transportation program grant application for some components of their overall Front Street design project, only addressing the areas of the project that would be the most competitive for the current description of that grant program. So they are essentially starting from scratch on their active transportation program application, and we're taking a look at the whole program and trying to figure out how we can help the city get the most points possible. If the city does not receive the Cycle 3 funding, then we would not be providing any match, of course, for that, and we will know that probably mid-November, just guessing about the timing from last year. So this 20% match is a not to exceed 20% and not to exceed 400,000. We don't have project costs at this time, but our intent in providing the match is to help them to get every point possible. And you know, as Humboldt County learned in this last year, you know, 1 point counts, and they, you know, were left out of funding because they were tied for the scoring as a adequate scoring project, except that they were not one of the projects selected because there were so many scores in that area. It's just an example of how competitive this program is. So it's one of the priority purposes for our regional surface transportation program funds is to provide match funds for both the city and county and other agencies who need it. And I think this is a really good project, and I'm grateful that the city's really sticking with it and coming back and back and back, because that's what it's going to take to build Front Street in the way that our community needs.
Okay, so the recommendation is to adopt Resolution 2016 number 11, which would award the city transportation an amount not to exceed $400,000 of the RSTP funds as match for the Front Street project. Can I get a motion on that?
I would move.
And can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, as far as before we have public comment, Eric, I invite you. Do you have anything you want to add to it, or self-explanatory?
And the only thing that I would say, I'm very supportive of this project. It's a long time coming. I wish we could get something going on it. It's really needed to be done. But is this the only pot of funds that are available to us to use for this? The RSTP funds are fairly flexible, aren't they? And does that restrict any other projects that the city or the county might have?
The RSTP funds is the only fund source where we have enough funds. The only potential other match funding would be the TDA pedestrian and bike funds. Those funds come in at about $10,000 a year, and they're already committed to smaller projects, the pedestrian improvements in the school zones projects that we're working on now. So this really is the only funding source that we have for match funds for nearly any project application.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, Chairman Finnegan. Yeah, so Eric Weir, Public Works Director for the City of Crescent City. Just want to thank, what's that?
Part-time dancer.
No comment on that one. It's a good thing I have the day job, though. Just put it that way for any of those that were in attendance on that. Boy, Jerry kind of threw me off my game on that one.
I wasn't going to say anything up there.
But no, just want to thank the commission for considering this request, as well as allocating the $10,000 for the consultant to assist us with this application. Front Street obviously is a priority for this community, as I gave a brief report at the Economic Summit too about Front Street. Obviously, we need to do something with Front Street. Front Street is falling apart, but Front Street has a failing structural section underneath it. So the fix isn't as easy as just doing an overlay or anything like that. It really does take a large infrastructure type project. So with the current funding situation with transportation, we haven't had much choice but to try to compartmentalize the project into the funding sources that are available. And this funding source is one of the few that is available, so that's why we're trying to pick off the pedestrian piece of this. Other pieces that we've been able to fund is the sewer infrastructure project along B Street. So we're able to fund that with CDBG, so it's about trying to pick off these pieces to finally get to a project that we can do. If we did just try to overlay it, again, the structural section wouldn't support it. That would be about $1 million project just to put a Band-Aid over it. That isn't going to be the long-term solution. So again, just thank the commission for your guys' consideration.
Appreciate it. Any public comment on this? Back to the board. Questions? Poll the vote, please.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Policy Advisor Member Medham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chairman Finnegan?
Yes, thank you. Which takes us to the TAP and staff recommendations to adopt Resolution 2016-12, approving the overall work program. Tamara.
The overall work program is an annual work program for the Transportation Commission. It lays out in detail the work that the commission is expected to do, plans to do for the future fiscal year. We revise the work program as seldom as possible because it's a really complicated process, but it ends up being 2 to 3 times a year. So I am in a difficult position with the work program this year. Typically it's adopted in the April meeting. We are now in our May meeting, and I still have some uncertainty about what the right way is to move forward. I have applied for a small $13,000 grant from some remaining RPA funds that not Del Norte, but other rural regions in the state, when they don't spend all of their RPA in a timely manner, it reverts back to a pot. That pot gets put together by Caltrans headquarters, and they put out, on occasion, a small grant opportunity for rural RTPAs to apply for a little bit extra. I've completed that application. I was expecting to hear back from them at the beginning of the week, which was what their original note said, but I haven't heard back from them yet. So in putting together the agenda and moving it forward, I had to make a decision about whether to put together a program recommendation assuming success or assuming not success. And I opted to go with the assumption of success for this grant, that we will receive the $13,000 to supplement our budget so we can do all of the work that's in the grant application. If we don't receive that $13,000, then I will come back in the June meeting with a revised staff recommendation and a revised budget or overall work program for our next year. So we can go, I'll just, if you'd like to flip to the table of contents with me, I'll do a quick review of the work that's in here. So that's in your agenda packet, page 22. But I'll just go through them quickly. The long-range planning coordination is required work of the Transportation Commission. It's not discretionary work, with the exception of the economic and demographic profile. That profile is probably the single project that we receive most thanks for from the community year over year. And it's a data document that helps us track our data over time. And it's also a pretty small project. Work element B is the overall work program, again, a requirement. Work element D is our transportation improvement program development. Again, it's required work. Work element E is the Transportation Development Act administration and fiscal management, again, required work. Work element F is our SAFE program, or the call box system maintenance and reporting. Again, it's required for us. The active transportation planning is a discretionary item. It's one of the things that the TAC and then the commission in, I think, December sat down, talked about the different projects that we could include as our discretionary projects. This is essentially preliminary work on Elk Valley Road to do some planning and see what we can do for improvements on that corridor. It's a second phase of a project that was implemented about, 8-10 years ago. The Safe Routes to School program project is a continuation from this year, and it continues the work that Amber is doing with our walk and roll to school. The pavement management plan is somewhat discretionary and somewhat mandatory. We're required to have a pavement management plan, or our agencies are, the city and county is, in order to seek some funding. And so the Transportation Commission has, by practice, provided assistance to develop that pavement management plan for the city and county. This is the project that we would delay a bit should we not receive the $13,000 per the TAC recommendations. So that's, part of the decision that I'm, hoping we don't have to make, but we potentially will have to make. We have pavement management plan right now. It's just due for updating. The Pebble Beach Drive project initiation documents, or PID documents, are the preliminary work to set up the city's portion of Pebble Beach Drive to be eligible for an active transportation program grant. So we're doing the preliminary work necessary to get that project ready. So in the next cycle of ATP, we'll have a very solid project ready for that application. The Systemic Safety Analysis Report is a match funding project. It's in our overall work program because it's using RPA funds for match funds because it's eligible. It's an RPA eligible project. So that's providing match funds for a county grant. And the 2016 Regional Transportation Plan gives us the time and the funding necessary to complete that document in a way that we're required to do by the state. And the Caltrans information element is an outline of the Caltrans work that they will be doing in the next year. So the request today is to approve the overall work program, thinking positive, and including the $13,000 that we have not yet received notice on. And again, if we don't receive that funding, then I'll come back in the June meeting with a revision.
Okay, questions, comments?
I would move we adopt Resolution 201612, approving the overall work program.
Can I get a second, please?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, public comment on the recommendation regarding the overall work program.
Yes, my name is Barbara Kennedy with the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. In work element D, the TIP development on page 34, we see an allocation of $64,000 in consultant expenditures to support the 199 project and to explain to the community what is happening with the bridge replacement and curve alignment. This seems like a lot of money in light of the fiscal constraints reflected in the state's task with deleting $754 million worth of projects, $64,000 in consultant expenditures to explain to the community. That's quite a bit of money. And in addition, product number 2 on page 35 allocates $65,000 for defending the project in federal court. When you add in the $13,000 from the potential grant of $13,000, starting to add up to quite a bit of money in addition to whatever was budgeted initially for this project. So once again, in calling for fiscal responsibility, we question these expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarification for the minutes, there are actually 4 tasks that are covered in that $65,000, only of which one is to represent the Delaware Transportation Commission and stakeholder partners in federal court. Any other public comment? Okay, back to the board. Further discussion? Questions? Poll the vote, please.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yes.
Policy Advisory Member Madam?
Yes.
Chairman Finnegan?
Yes. Thank you for all the hard work that went into that. Which takes us to item number M, which is discussion items, and the first of which is Consolidated Transportation Services Agency, CTSA.
Oh, I've been doing some research on the CTSA designation, and I have a meeting actually this afternoon with some a group of folks who are perhaps maybe interested in collaborating together to find a way to bring our people home after they are flown out for emergency medical appointments. I have not much more information than this. It's sort of an initial meeting. We don't have an agenda. We're just going to sit down and talk and hopefully develop some common ground. The CTSA designation is a designation that's available to anybody who's interested, and I've let other folks who have demonstrated interest in the past know that this CTSA designation is available again, and if they are interested in providing a proposal to the Commission, I've welcomed them to do so. So I continue to stay in touch. I want everybody to understand this is an open process, and that I am seeking, and the Transportation Commission will support listening to anybody who has a proposal for the CTSA designation. The maximum allocation is 5% of our TDA funding, and it equates to between $28,000 and $32,000 a year, depending on how sales tax is coming in those specific areas. So again, we'll be meeting shortly, and hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll come back with a recommendation, if not from this group, from some group who is proposing to be our Consolidated Transportation Service Agency for a region.
I want to applaud you for trying to find solutions where the answer doesn't necessarily lie under the purview of this organization for which you're the executive director, and rather than trying to find fault, because a lot of people don't understand when a patient is flown out of the hospital, it is the hospital's patient. Even if they're going to Medford, there's still a responsibility to be repatriated, if you will, back to Sutter Coast. An obligation that they have shirked. If that's a strong word, so be it. But taking the proactive, positive way of trying to form partnerships, which is the only way anything gets done in this community, to identifying the partners and then finding a possible solution with some funding. I applaud you for your efforts, and we'll stay tuned.
Thank you.
How about Last Chance Grade?
I don't have an update on Last Chance Grade. Brad, do you have one?
I can speak to that very briefly, and then if there are any questions. As you know, right now, we're in the process of developing the project study report, which will help us sort of get our hands around the total costs and the different alternatives. That work will end at the end of this fiscal year. We'll complete by the end of June. Concurrently, we're looking at emergency projects, both that are occurring on the site right now and that might occur in the future. That work's being done out of our project management section, and they're working with FHWA on the potential for emergency relief funding at what level we can get.
I know that there's been conversations with Federal Highways also regarding that the work that is done out there, that project is now being viewed even by them as temporary rather than permanent. What kind of, is there anything to report on? And I know you can't on a lot of stuff because it's going on, whether it's in the congressman's stakeholders group or whether it's in rooms in Sacramento that are not privy to some of the grandstanders. But any kind of a parallel track with funding through this project for the identification of the environmental studies that can move this along?
All of the caveats you have put in place are accurate. What I can say is that we're threading a fairly fine line, because if we, for example, go through a traditional route and fund the environmental, then we run the potential of making it ineligible for the emergency money. Right. So the PSR is about as far, the project study report is about as far as I can go without having an issue where you haven't programmed a component yet.
So that's the tipping point, the triggering of the next step.
Right.
Okay, good.
Brett, if you could let us know what the completion date is, anticipated completion date of the PSR?
It'll be by the end of June this year.
This year?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the PSR will be completed in June 2016.
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay.
Am I misspeaking?
I don't know.
Oh,
I truly
believe so.
don't know. I mean, I truly don't.
If I'm incorrect in that, I will correct myself before the commission.
Right. With a month.
Right,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I'm not on the stakeholder group, so I really am not.
My people are working hard, and I've seen drafts across my desk, so I think we're going to be this fiscal year.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So do you think we'd have it available for the July meeting, or would it be that too soon?
Once it's signed by our director, it becomes a public document, so as soon as he signs it, I can get it up to Tamara.
Perfect. Bill, you had something you wanted to public comment on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill Lonsdale again. I'm going to ask a question of the gentleman on the end, and I don't know your name, but I'm happy to speak to you. And the question may be out of order, so if Chair rules it out of order, I'll accept that. But
Well, just so you don't get out of order, why don't you direct the question to the chair, and if it's appropriate, I'll ask.
I'm asking you, sir, because you're not involved in local politics, I don't think. And, but the question is, the community is being led to believe that there's a decent chance that the last chance grade solution will be achievable in 5 years. What impression do you get from your work on the project? Thank you.
Short of a catastrophic failure of the location, I would expect the environmental review process to take more than 5 years. So, yeah, that's not the date that we're looking at in our document. When that's finalized, it'll have an approach date. The date that we will be looking at assumes immediate funding, which is almost certain not to occur. These types of projects, Devil's Slide is a good example of a similar situation, typically require an extraordinary event before we can actually get to the money. Thank you.
And I'm going to piggyback on that only because I had a conversation with the operating engineers, the actual dirt movers and the people who build tunnels. If there was a catastrophic failure to actually build, and what we're talking about is a rerouting here, if that's what the alleged 5-year thing is. So we're not talking about catastrophic failure building it back into the mountain in the existing footprint. We're talking about a complete reroute. 6 to 8 years and just moving dirt and building tunnels is what I had heard, excluding environmental. You have any feedback on something like that with any experience with Caltrans or the existing?
I'm not certain I can speak that. That number sounds reasonable to me. The caveat excluding environmental makes it a more interesting discussion. There are ways, of course, to accelerate the environmental review process, including getting direct congressional direction to do something and getting the state to waive CEQA. But your number for construction sounds about where I would have put it if I was guessing. I am not an engineer.
Right.
So.
I won't pursue it any further. That's
Mr. Chair,
enough.
the dirt moving years, is that contingent on which route? Shortest route, longest route? I'm just curious.
Me?
Yes.
Medium route.
Yes, just medium. That's average time. Okay.
Average.
Thank you.
And we have on our stakeholders group a former Caltrans engineer, Gordon Johnson from Rio Del, and he talks about the conundrum for just finding a place to put the dirt when you have to do the grading and whatnot. So it's a pretty complicated process besides the environmentals, which are critically important to the area. So it's very complicated, and I know we need to get it done, but we need to do it right, and that's what I think people don't appreciate when they get panicky when rumors start to fly. So
There's just some natural things that happen, even though it's only through one season, through the history of the bypass that they built. Build it, the same thing happened at Willett. You build it, you wait for a season of rain or whatever you get, and then you rebuild it. Fix the slides and whatnot. So anyway, I'm not an engineer either. Anything else on this, Tamara, for discussion on last chance? Any other public comment? We're just on a discussion.
The last chance grade
We've been there. That's where we are.
For the discussion items, it says last chance.
That's what we've been
grade.
talking about.
Okay, so, just a couple days ago, Green Diamond showed up at the Board of Supervisors and made a presentation. And they did touch on last chance grade. And they mentioned something that was a surprise to me, and 3 stakeholders up here and myself, so 4 in the room. I don't remember ever being told that there were actually, if I got it right from him, there are actually 2 possibilities for emergency routes. And we really were never given a clear picture or took up the issue of emergency routes as a part of our work program in those meetings. And I think maybe that would be a good thing for stakeholders to do, is where are these exactly, are these 2 different ones? I thought there was just one that had very steep grades, but he mentioned 2 emergency routes possible. So it would be nice to see maps, and so that we can get a feel for what's out there on emergency basis.
Hey.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just not going to get into a debate with this, but I'm going to give you the reality of it. Number one, those were brought up at the stakeholders. One goes way east that was not even considered because it was too costly and the grade was too high, and these are old logging roads. They are not built for highways. And the other one that he had the presentation on is not there. It does not connect back, and it would connect back probably down around Hamilton Road, which is one of the longer alternatives that we did and are considering. I don't know whether it made our top 3. Caltrans may have put it back on the top 7, but it's non-existent, and it was considered, or is being. Okay. Go ahead.
And I think there's a misconception that an emergency route means that the public can go on it, and that is not what I understand to be the case. Emergency route would be for emergency vehicles. That's fire, medical. That's not going to be a public route that's going to be published, that people can just take that route instead of going around. So you're talking about emergency vehicles only, my understanding.
Right. And again, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but in the time that it's going to take to develop that road to make it passable, if there was a slide at last chance, it will be opened, albeit 1 lane, controlled traffic. So even for timing, it's not feasible. Anything else on this? All right, we're going to move on then, and commissioner comments and reports. Short?
None for me, sir.
I just have I guess kind of a comment. We had a meeting with Parks, and evidently because of the second bridge construction project, getting an awful lot of traffic on Howland Hill Road, and it's just a mess, I guess. And the state parks doesn't have the funding to fix it, and the bridge people don't want to fix it, and I don't know if there's any federal highway monies to fix it or Caltrans monies to fix it. I don't know where, they don't know where to go, and I don't know where to tell them to go. I did call John Driscoll and mention that to him, but I don't know what we do about a situation like that. And you don't either, I can see from the look on your face.
No, I understand the problem, but frankly, this is the first that I've heard about it. So folks who don't want to wait for the construction delay take the Holland Hill Road through the park, and that road hasn't been developed or designed to support that kind of traffic, and certainly not in the winter when, we have so much rain. So the road is being degraded. It's and they don't have funds, but I have no idea. I can contact Parks and get some kind of a, but I think that you're actually in better touch with them than the Transportation Commission could be. It's
well, I just don't know if there's an avenue or if there's someplace. I mean, it's certainly part of our local transportation but I don't know if it fits into anything that we've got. I don't know where that comes. It's Parks Roads, and I don't know where they, I mean, it used to be a county road, but we gave it to them. That might have been a mistake.
So can we ask that on our next agenda that we get some feedback from Parks as to what their plans are for Holland Hill? I think it was even closed for a little bit.
Well, they're talking about closing it now because it's in such bad shape.
Right. I mean, frankly, I'm surprised that it's still open,
Well,
given what
that's-
you just described. I don't want to mention the C word, but I am surprised that it's still open. I can contact Parks and see if they can provide some information for our June or July meetings.
Good. Appreciate it, thanks.
Thank you.
That's all.
Any other reports, Catherine?
Just that I participated in the bike walk and roll on May 4th, and I was over on Pacific across from the Family Resource Center, and there were so many parents that thanked me because I had the slow down kind of sign, and they were telling me that they really appreciated someone being there and that people are going way too fast in that section. So I know we have the stop light or that you can press when you're crossing the street, but nevertheless, people are going way too fast right there, and I just wanted to mention that. But parents were very appreciative and yelling out their car windows and saying thank you, and so I thought it was a big success.
Yeah.
On their cell phones, texting.
Yeah.
No, they weren't doing that.
Brad, nothing? Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So I just might say too that I participated at Best Maxwell, and it was well attended, and the kids were liking the slickers. They had little slickers in pouches so that they wouldn't get overly wet when they walked to school. So it's a nice project, and I hope to do it again.
So I'm just going to throw a little thing in there that really doesn't have to do with the Local Transportation Commission, but I invite everybody to go on the website and pay attention to what's going on with Penn Air. They just made a substantial multi-million-dollar investment in new planes, bigger planes, faster planes that we will reap the benefits of. And as far as connectivity to other places, so if you don't like 199, fly to Portland and go anywhere you want. Go to, Arcata, San Francisco, points east, west, south, Klamath Falls, Reading, you name it. So, great alternative, and it's getting better every day. And with that, we're going to go ahead and adjourn to the Policy Advisory Committee and take action on those recommendations. Can I get a motion on that, please?
I would move that we approve and adopt the actions taken by the Policy Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any public comment on those? Okay, pull the vote, please.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Chairman Finnegan?
Yes, and with that, we're going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting till our next scheduled meeting at July 9th, or on July 9th at 11 o'clock. Thank you all for attending and commenting. Thank you.
So Dave, is Penn Air turning south yet?